Aloha! Welcome to 3 Levels of Enlightenment. This is program 1.3, a continuation of the last program, which was entitled The 2012 Reversal of the Direction of Rotation of the Planet Earth. In our last program, we talked about magnetism, how electrons moving through a field in a circular fashion will generate a north and a south pole, depending upon which direction the electrons are moving. If you look at a screwdriver that's being magnetized and you look at it from one end or the other, say the North Pole, if the electrons are moving in a counterclockwise direction, you'll have a North Pole in front of you and the South Pole's on the other side. If the electrons are moving in a clockwise direction, then the poles reverse. The North Pole will be away from you and the South Pole will be close to you. That's the intent of this program today, to continue the explanation of why the Earth is about to reverse its rotation. This program is the third in the first level in a series sponsored by the United Galactic Federation of Planets, or UGFP, as you can see in front of me. My name is Merlin, and I'll be your tour guide. You may notice that my face is somewhat shiny. It's because when I made the first program, I got a pretty good suntan, almost a sunburn, so I'm using sunscreen to keep from getting cooked out here in the Arizona desert. We're coming to you from the Gilbert Ray Campground in the Tucson Mountain County Park here in Tucson, Arizona. Standing behind me on my right is my good friend Roy, and on my left is his partner Dale. Roy and Dale are giant saguaro cactuses, magnificent creations of nature that are found in this part of the world. We're joined by other fascinating plants like prickly pear cactus, barrel cactus, jumping choyas, palo verdes, mesquite, and many other beautiful creations of nature. We also have coyotes, mountain lions, lynx, bobcats, deer, rabbits, snakes, quail, roadrunners, doves, pigeons, hummingbirds, and lots of other wildlife throughout this park. You may hear some of the birds, in fact, chirping as this program is recorded. Both this park and the Saguaro National Park next door are great places to visit, as well as Old Tucson Movie Studios just across the road and the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum just down the road. Over the past 12 years, my wife Moana and I have been given information concerning our world and future events. We always share this information with everyone we know, but when the event occurs, they then ask us, "Why didn't you tell us?" They forget we told them. By producing these videos, we can now say, we did tell you. We intend to produce about 5 dozen programs. Hopefully, all of these programs will be available on the internet and on cable TV. The information in this particular program, the 2012 reversal of the direction of rotation of the planet Earth, has grave implications, but this information is not meant to frighten or scare you. It's merely meant to inform you. There's a reason for all the unexplained events that are happening in our world today, from the predictions about 2012 to the oxygen readings in Los Angeles and San Francisco of 12% and in Tokyo of 7% when they should be at 21%, to earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, hurricanes, megastorms, winter tornadoes, and thunder snow, to disappearing honeybees, mass extinctions, birds falling from the sky, fish kills, and marine animal beachings, to the answer if oil is fossil or abiotic, to women getting pregnant after radical hysterectomies, to near-death experiences, UFOs, aliens, and ghosts, to the 2008 stock market crash, the 2009 market rebound, the 2010 market flash crash, and all of the bankruptcies and job losses, to the Oklahoma City Federal Building bombing, all of the events of 9/11 and the Iraq and Afghan wars, to the reason that Saddam Hussein could not have nuclear weapons and why the terrorists can never nuke the United States, to the presidential elections of 2000 and 2004 and the reason that why George W. Bush had to be president of the United States. All of these events can be explained, and you have a right to know what's happening. But if you take nothing else from these programs, we hope you will come away knowing that you and the rest of us are truly loved by millions of others beyond our world. In the words of our sponsors, may this message fill you with joy, serenity, and determination. I'd now like to explain why these programs are entitled The 3 Levels of Enlightenment. Our sponsors are sensitive to the feelings and beliefs of all of you. Our sponsors do not want to offend anyone, so as a precaution, the programs have been sorted out into 3 categories, levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is for all audiences and is rated PG-13. No one should be offended by the information offered at this level, but parents are cautioned that this level may not be appropriate for young children. Level 2 is only for people who believe in angels and is rated R. It is not for children, and it is not for adults who don't believe in angels. So they're cautioned not to watch. Level 3 will definitely offend certain groups and is rated XXX. It is absolutely not for children, and it is likely not for some adults. The groups that will be offended include 1. People with a strong belief in religion, 2. People with a strong belief in science, and 3. People with a strong belief in our government's official explanations for events. Anyone in these groups should not watch Level 3. If you tune in after the program has started, when the level was first announced, you'll still be able to identify the level being discussed in several ways. On the board behind me are the words level and number corresponding to today's program. And as you see, it's Level 1, Number 3. The tray in front of me has a placard with the letters PG-13. This is a Level 1 program, and it's rated PG-13. During the programs that are Levels 2 or Level 3, the tray in front of me will hold placards indicating R or XXX respectively. In addition, you will be able to determine the level of the program by the shirt that I'm wearing. If it's a Level 1 program, I'll have on a Hawaiian shirt, like I have on today. If it's a Level 2 program, I'll have on a plaid shirt. And if it's a Level 3 program, I'll have on a white shirt. So please evaluate what levels may cause you to be offended and then watch accordingly. This disclaimer will be provided for the first few programs at each level, then it will be discontinued in the interest of saving time. We look forward to posting these programs on the internet, where we're limited sometimes to 15 minutes per program, so in order to pack in as much information as possible, time is of the essence. I'd now like to share with you our humble story. My wife and I have homes on the Big Island of Hawaii, in Northern California, and here in Tucson, Arizona. It turns out there's an important connection between all 3 locations. My wife is pure Hawaiian. She's the 6th great-granddaughter of the first king of Hawaii, Kamehameha the Great, and she's a great-grandniece of the last king and queens of Hawaii, King Kalakaua and Queen Liliuokalani. Her genealogy turns out to be another very important part of our operations. My wife served in the Army in the 1960s and is a Vietnam-era veteran. She's a graduate of the University of Hawaii and operates her own business in Hilo, Hawaii. I was born in Michigan, in the palm of the hand. My family moved to Southern California in 1964 and then moved to Northern California in 1966, where I finished high school and attended college. I served in the Navy in the 1960s, and I'm also a Vietnam-era vet. I then served 23 years in the Air Force Reserve from the 1980s until the mid-2000s. For over 35 years, I've been a pilot, and I've flown as a captain, a co-pilot, and a flight engineer. I've also been a flight instructor, a aircraft mechanic, a chief pilot, and a director of operations. I've logged more than 30,000 hours of flight time in everything from little Cessnas, Pipers, and Beaches, all the way up to the big jets. I retired from my airline a little over 8 years ago. I'm also retired from a fire department of a major city on the West Coast. I worked for the FAA as an aviation safety inspector between the fire department and the airline. All of my careers restricted me from having a full beard and long hair, but our sponsors say that it's necessary that I let my hair grow out. This is the second marriage for both my wife and myself. We'll celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary on March 25th, 2011. My wife has 6 children from her first marriage, and I have 4 children from my first marriage. Plus, we've been blessed with 22 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. As an airline pilot and as a fire captain, I've had to make quick and intelligent decisions because people's lives were often at stake. So I've had to have my feet planted firmly on the ground, and I'm one of the last people you'd expect to be involved in any kind of New Age thinking. So even though I may seem like an unlikely candidate for this job, my wife and I consider it a great honor and privilege to have been chosen to receive this information over the last 12 years. My wife and I have been given knowledge that is of critical importance to all mankind, and we're more than happy to share it with you. You can contact us by writing us at UGFP, P.O. Box 13234, Tucson, Arizona 85732-3234. If you send us money for postage, we'll be glad to send you an assortment of handout material in a large envelope for level 1 that our sponsors would like you to have. If you would like levels 2 or 3, please indicate when you write to us. So, on with the show. In Stephen Hawking and Leonard Mlodinow's book, The Grand Design, Mr. Hawking talks about an event that was described in the book of Joshua many thousands of years ago. This event is found on page 87 of the book, and it says, the Bible tells the story of Joshua praying for the sun and the moon to stop in their trajectories so he would have extra daylight to finish fighting the Amorites in Canaan. According to the book of Joshua, the sun stood still for about a day. Today we know that that would have meant that the earth stopped rotating. If the earth stopped, according to Newton's laws, anything not tied down would have remained in motion at the earth's original speed, which is 1100 miles per hour at the equator, a high price to pay for a delayed sunset. Well, he's right. The earth would have come to a full stop, and everything that wasn't tied down would have kept moving. Well, Stephen Hawking is right. If the earth came to a full stop, if it stopped rotating, then anything that wasn't tied down would have kept moving. And let's see what that actually means. If we draw a circle of the earth and draw the equator, say right here, here would be North America, and Texas, Florida, and so forth. And then here's South America. The equator passes through South America, and the Earth is 25,000 miles around in circumference. It takes the Earth 24 hours to make a full revolution. So if you divide 25,000 miles by 24 hours, you get approximately 1,100 miles per hour. That's the speed that the Earth is rotating at the equator. It's going 1,100 miles per hour. Now, if the Earth was to come to a full stop, anything that wasn't tied down would keep moving. Well, that could be a problem. Now let me explain something else. Here's another diagram of the Earth showing North America and South America and the islands of Hawaii. We have a volcano on our island, on the big island of Hawaii, called Kilauea, and the volcano puts out lava that's composed of several elements. It's 50% silicon, 20% aluminum, 10% iron, and the remaining 20% are various other metals. What's interesting about the iron is that as it cools off, it comes out of the volcano at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When it cools, the iron particles will point towards magnetic north. And at this time, magnetic north is this way. Up here's the North Pole. And so our iron particles point towards the North Pole. The problem is in Hawaii, everything erodes away, including the islands. So we don't have any iron particles from a long time ago to tell us which way is north. But we do have a crack in the ocean floor off of Chile, down here in South America, that's putting out the same kind of lava. It has 10% iron in the lava, and this crack continues to pour out this lava, and then the lava is carried off towards the northwest, towards Japan, by plate tectonics. Now, as some of you have probably learned, ever since the Apollo space program back in the 70s, we now know that the surfaces of the Earth are giant tectonic plates, and they're continually in motion. And in the case of the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific floor, it's part of the Pacific plate, and it's moving towards the northwest at a rate of somewhere between 1/2 inch and 2 inches per year. Well, this lava that's coming out of the crack in the ocean floor off Chile is being carried towards the northwest at that rate of 1/2 inch to 2 inches per year. Now, it's not a real accurate way of measuring time because the rate changes over the years. It's not as easy as counting the rings of a tree to find out how old it is. Those are fairly consistent, and then they delineate themselves during the wintertime because they get real dark, and then they get light again during the growth season. But in the case of these lava flows moving, we can get a general idea that there's a passage of time, and there appears to be a regular sequence in something that happens. Now, as I mentioned, the lava particles will point towards magnetic north, and at the current time, north is that way. But you go a certain distance, and all of a sudden, the iron particles change their mind, and they point towards our South Pole as being the North Pole. Then you go another distance, and they reverse themselves again and go back to pointing towards our current North Pole. And you go a little more distance, and it reverses. And they find that all across the Pacific floor, as they do core samples of these iron particles, they keep pointing opposite directions. Well, at the current time, the floor is moving at about 2 inches per year. And if you measure distance, you can then get time based on our current movement. And if it's going to be 10 years, then it will be 20 inches. If it's 100 years, it'll be 200 inches. 1,000 years, 2,000 inches. And they find that at 30,000 inches, which is 15,000 years, based on our understanding of the floor movement today, at 15,000 years, that's when these particles reverse themselves. Then they go another 30,000 inches, which we might believe to be 15,000 years in our time. They flip again. And every 15,000 years, those iron particles point the opposite direction. Well, it's an ongoing set of intervals. We can't be certain if it's really 15,000 years. It might be longer, it might be shorter, but based on current movement today, that's what we can kind of say. But we do know there are regular intervals of this reversal of the North Pole. We are now at an interval. We are at a time of reversal. That might help point towards an event coming in 2012. Back to our earlier diagram of the Earth, we know that our Earth is rotating 1,100 miles per hour. And an interesting anecdote regarding flying from Los Angeles to Honolulu in the summertime, in our afternoon flights, we actually chase the sun. The Earth is going that way, 1,100 miles per hour. The sun is setting in the west, and we're flying from Los Angeles to Hawaii in a DC-10. And something unusual can sometimes happen. If we have the right weather conditions up ahead, we can actually see the green flash. Now, those of you that have visited the tropics may have heard of this. It's something that you occasionally see. You've got to have a pretty clear sky, and it only lasts for just an instant, but it's something rather beautiful. As the sun sets and that last sliver of sunlight goes under the horizon, you will sometimes get a green flash of light. Apparently, green is the green colors are the last colors of the prism to vanish below the horizon, and you'll get this flash of green. Well, in our case, we're flying from Los Angeles to Hawaii at about a little over 500 miles an hour. We're catching up to the sun at about half the speed that the Earth is rotating. So the sun takes a really long time to set as we're flying to the west. And instead of getting a green flash, we get a green glow. And it's amazing to watch. It lasts for about 30 seconds. And as that last sliver of sunlight sets below the horizon, we get this long line of green right on the horizon. And it's neat to watch. Kind of a fun phenomenon. But back to our story about this 1,100 miles per hour that the Earth is rotating. We have a planet that's about to come to a full stop. And if you're standing on the ground anywhere in the world, you will probably know that it's coming to a full stop because you're going to feel the deceleration, and you're probably going to have to hold on to something, and you're going to hear a lot of moaning and groaning and have earthquakes like you've never seen before, but it'll be an experience. The only problem is, according to Stephen Hawking, is anything that's not tied down is going to keep moving. Well, just off Los Angeles is a great big puddle of water called the Pacific Ocean. It is 20,000 feet deep, and that water is moving 1,100 miles per hour. It is not tied down. It's going to keep on coming. We're going to have a wave of water 20,000 feet high. That's 4 miles high. And here's the problem. Water weighs a half a pound a foot per square inch. So if you take 20,000 feet of water and divide by 2, 20,000 foot wall of water, and divide that by 2, you get 10,000 pounds per square inch at the bottom of that wall of water. That is enormous pressure. Anything that's at the bottom of that wall of water gets flattened to the size of a piece of paper. Nothing survives. And this is coming on December 21st, 2012. The thought of a 20,000 foot high wall of water passing over the Earth with pressures of 10,000 psi at the bottom of that wall is fairly terrifying. But the good news is there are others that know about this. We're not the only ones. We're not alone in this universe. And there are others beyond our world that know about this event, that they know that this happens on a regular basis, that we are due on the winter solstice of 2012. And as I said in the introduction, if you take nothing else from these programs, we want you to remember that you and all of us are loved by these millions of others beyond our world, and they're not going to allow us to perish. They have a survival plan. We're all going to be okay. So don't let this information scare you. That's not the intent. We just want you to know there is something coming, but there is a plan for all of us to survive. In our next programs that continue this topic of the reversal of the direction of rotation of our planet, Earth, we will talk about other indicators that show that this has happened on a regular basis. We'll talk about yardangs, about the landscape east of Spokane, Washington, about the Great Lakes, about the 10,000 lakes in Minnesota, about the legends of floods from the Hopi Indians, about the collapse of the magnetosphere, about the giant breach in our magnetic field, about all this weird weather we're having, how we had to delay play in the Accenture golf tournament over in Marana back in February because of snow on the fairway. Arizona normally doesn't have snow on the fairways, especially for golf tournaments. That's why they have golf tournaments in Arizona in February. Everywhere else in the country has plenty of snow on the fairways, but not here. That's called weird weather. We'll talk about confused animals, about why the geese have stopped migrating in other parts of the United States, why playgrounds and golf courses now have a problem with geese that don't want to go away, about the confused animals like bees, and several other subjects as well. But by the time we get to the end of this particular part of the program, I hope I will have convinced you that 2012 is real, that we are having a polar shift, and that we need to prepare. So at this time, I'd like to wish you all aloha and a hui ho. Until next time.